So I mean, pre-roll and just video in general has been a tremendous growth area for us this year. So we're really trying to ramp up our access to really quality inventory. So there's definitely a supply and demand problem right now. There's a lot of video supply, but there's not a lot of quality video supply. So Xaxis is really trying to strike direct relationships with top publishers that have some access to pre-roll. A lot of them are unfortunately sold out with their direct sales efforts. But part of our Xaxis premium product is to really kind of tap into that supply to give our advertisers access to quality pre-roll supply that would be hard to get by going to each publisher individually. So that's something we're really focusing on. We want to make sure we're trying to operate outside the exchanges on video as well.
So what about, sort of display and, these sort of units that are out of stream? What are the opportunities there, and what are you guys doing, or where might this develop?
Yeah, sure. I think that's really interesting. I touched on the supply-demand issue. Companies like eBuzzing and some products we have in-house are really creating really quality video supply where otherwise wouldn't exist. So I think that's a really interesting business model in that while it's not traditional pre-roll maybe, but it's hitting an engaged audience as they read an article and providing them with a video asset when otherwise they wouldn't really have that inventory available. So that's something we're very interested in and really kind of ramping up our education on.
So not to get too deep in the ad op side of things, but how, how does that work? In other words, it's pretty clear through exchanges how you kind of serve up ads into a network and goes into a player on a publisher site.
Right.
What about, and of course display has been part of programmatic for a long time,
yeah.
So could you just explain a little bit maybe operationally about how this works, this sort of, with the e-buzzing or with the sort of rich media out of stream?
Sure. So that all, for the Xaxis piece, I can't really speak to eBuzzing's technology, but for our piece, it's really those direct relationships with publishers. So while it's done programmatically through pipes and technology, it's not something that we're purchasing on the open exchanges. It's really through those direct relationships to make sure we can kind of implement that on the player or the publisher's site. So we really have to make sure we're speaking to publishers and they're able to accept what we're trying to do. There's video exchanges, yes, and that's great for our audience targeting and reach and scale. But again, we're really trying to set ourselves apart in that we have direct media relationships as well.
So how big is your, the private exchanges with publishers right now, and how much of that could, involve sort of this out of stream video? Is it like very early on, or like, because I assume it's a small part of it, but give us a roadmap. How do you see it?
So, I mean, I think it absolutely depends. I think in Q4 especially could come in really handy when our top publishers are completely sold out. So it's inventory that we can access that wouldn't exist otherwise. So it's really, I think Q4 is really going to pick up. It obviously depends on the advertiser and the campaign. Like Michael mentioned, everything has nuances and caveats, but I think that's really an interesting area where we'll see it pick up and we'll really need to tap into the out of stream video.
And just generally about media planning going to a more automated scenario, where are things going, with Group M and sort of what you see amongst your colleagues, and how much of media buying is going automated, if you will?
So, I mean, for Xaxis, it's a huge kind of effort for us, and we're really trying to focus on bringing as much as we can in-house. To do through programmatic channels. I think Group M echoes our sentiment and understanding the efficiencies associated with that. We have our proprietary DMP, so we love to kind of apply our own data to this supply, so that's really why we're bringing it in-house into our own technologies. I do think that trend will continue to grow. I think there are scenarios that programmatic, it just isn't a fit, so really kind of interesting content, really kind of custom executions, brand-specific efforts. I think that's where it might not make sense, but standard kind of audience targeting and really standard IAB creatives, that's where programmatic's really going to take over, and efficiency will really be the biggest piece.
And what's happening in the marketplace on pricing through, video, premium video? And everyone says that it's, a lot of people say it's sold out, there's a lack of inventory. How does that market dynamic impact pricing, and It creates demand, but talk a little bit about how you see the market dynamics.
Sure. So I think it can vary quarter to quarter, especially with the really top kind of broadcast level publishers. We've seen kind of fluctuating CPMs. We do see kind of non-premium, kind of non-broadcast supply, fluctuating CPMs there as well. There is a lot of sellout rate, but Xaxis is trying to kind of take risk and make commitments up front to get access to supply for the whole year and really kind of have that consistency throughout so we can keep our prices consistent for our clients.
And in terms of the so-called network of publishers or sites, how big is that, and what there's a lot of discussion, and we spoke to Ari Blumen about you guys going into the sort of out of exchanges, but into really this sort of these private networks with publishers. What is that ecosystem of private publishers? How big is it? How is it developing? Where will it go? And then there'll be sort of a mid-tail that's not part of that, or what's your vision on how that sort of publisher network is developing and where it might be going?
Right. So I mean, for us, we've been really targeting ComScore Top 100 to get that really quality supply, but it will absolutely vary on the campaign, the tactics. So we will need those kind of mid-level sites that they may operate with exchanges, but we'd like the supply before it hits those exchanges. I do think Xaxis is kind of a nuanced exception in that we still use exchanges in-house because a lot of our execution is either for efficiency or audience reach. So that's something where Ari will make the exception that Xaxis is different. But I mean, we're absolutely trying to, like I said, try to strike as many direct deals as possible to only use exchanges when we absolutely have to for reach reasons.
And what's next with programmatic for the industry? You know, we've spoken to some agency heads who say that, and programmatic's used in a lot of ways.
Right.
It's not necessarily bidding. It's automated media planning, I guess. Like, how big is automated media planning now, and how pervasive will it be, say, in 18 months for Group M, let's say?
Right. I mean, RTB is separate. I think if programmatic is just kind of purely automation, there's a lot of different facets within it. I think, like I said, that trend will continue to grow for both Xaxis and Group M. Group M has been working on kind of staffing up for programmatic teams to really bring that in-house and keep up that efficiency through those technologies. I think we're doing some interesting things where we're doing some non-standard units programmatically. So as technologies develop and as you can mimic kind of the traditional I/O relationships in the technologies and the platforms, it will continue to grow. For example, we've been doing a great work with kind of programmatic rising star units, which I think people think of as a custom, flashy brand platform. But if we're able to do it kind of through programmatic channels, that's where it gets really interesting.
Is that new for you guys, or?
We've been doing it for almost a year. So it's really starting to scale. We've really kind of developed our portfolio publishers in that mix. So it's really exciting, and it helps us kind of bring in new dollars that Xaxis might have not seen because we weren't really thought of as a branding platform.